This is Stacey with Beyond the Table. Today we are talking with Max Eberle. As everyone knows, he is a great professional player. He's been playing about 48 years, and he is one of the only players, actually he is the only player to have won the juniors, the collegiate, and the Derby City. So welcome, Max. You've been playing pretty great lately. What are some of your local tournaments or tournaments you've been playing in recently?
Thank you, Stacey. Good to be here. I played a lot in Idaho last summer up at the Pocket of Boise. I won the Steiner. It's a memorial tournament. And then I went over to Spokane, Washington and won the Spokane Open for the first time.
Wow.
And now I've been down. I'm in Vegas right now. I'm playing in the Andy Mercer tomorrow. That's a long-running bar box memorial tournament that's been going on at the Rum Runner since 1991.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Mark Estes, I think, used to own that. I knew Mark a million years ago. I don't know if he still owns it.
No, he doesn't. Gino does. I know Mark does the tables over there. I don't know if he actually owned it ever. I think Gino started that, and his brother Gordy passed away. And yeah, Mark does the tables though all over the area actually.
So we're all excited to talk to you about your mental game and find out a few hopeful hints that we can use. So we're going to kind of jump right into the questions. So we have some new questions. The first question is, why did you start playing pool? And how did that reason affect your game in a positive or negative light throughout your career?
Well, I consider myself lucky because my grandpa was a great player from Ohio. So I started playing in his basement. And my dad was really an awesome player, good enough to be pro, but he had health issues, so he didn't really make it that far. But he could run like 75 balls in straight pool, 5 racks of 9 ball. My grandpa could run 100 balls in straight pool all the time, and his specialty was 15 ball rotation. And so growing up around, my uncle Dave and my cousin Charlie, Danny, my cousin Danny. I have another uncle named Charlie. And I got a brother, Steven, and Will. And so kind of like everybody plays, all the guys in the family. And Allison's pretty good. But so, yeah, it was just a good environment. And then I got hooked on it. And when I saw Mike Siegel winning the Resorts International, I think it was 1984 on TV, they're all wearing tuxedos and he's winning $40,000. I was amazed. It looked so glamorous to be a professional player. So that's when I decided to be and to have, my grandpa and the rest of my family supporting me was pretty awesome. So I think it was kind of a natural fit for me. So I think it's all been positive, My mom would drive me to tournaments around Virginia. And so she supported me, and my stepdad, Tom, he put me through college, although I did win. When I won the juniors, I got a $3,500 scholarship, so I did pay for one semester from playing pool in college.
Oh, wow, that's great. Yeah, definitely having support, and then that will definitely help you throughout like tough times in pool when you need to draw on people that have been there for you, and you know that you're not going on it alone.
Yeah, big time, right? We don't have a driver's license when we were kids, so our mom has to take us around, or somebody has to drive us around. And the money, my grandpa, I would just go to Ohio for a couple months at a time every summer and just practice. So all my meals and rent, I didn't have to pay rent because I'm living at my grandparents, and the tables in the basement. And my grandpa's there to teach me. And my uncle gave me that Robert Burns standard book on pool and billiards.
Oh, yeah, I have that one.
That's a great book. I started that when I was 15 and then just went through from page 1, learned the shot, page 2, just did every page in the book. And that's why my game took such a huge jump from 15 to 16.
Okay.
Really, because there's resources like that out there that people aren't taking advantage of. Like, you should literally get a good pool book and open it up and start on page 1 and then master that book.
Right. And then,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. When like I said, I'm not anywhere near pro or anything, but I've been practiced with a lot of people, including you, and people who have helped me over the years. And yeah, you just really have to just to even be a medium player, you have to study and practice and do drills. And all of that. It's a lot, and the mental game is really important because you can have all the skills in the world, but if you can't operate under pressure, if you don't have tools to draw on when you're in a tough situation,
Hmm.
that's part of being a good player. It actually leads into our second question. Our second question is, when you're not feeling great and you have to play an important match, what are some of the mental tools or thoughts you go through in order to perform at your best when you're just not feeling it?
Well, do you mean like during the match or like before the match?
It could be either. Some people, like, they're before the match they do something, or maybe during the match something happens and you just kind of start feeling bad. So either or, like sometimes you're just having a bad day and a big match is coming up and you're like, oh, I really don't know if I can get into the zone and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the zone will be great. I mean, but it'll be good enough just to perform your game, you know.
Right.
But a lot of it's preparation, mental preparation, talking to yourself, telling yourself. I call it future casting. You could actually talk to yourself as if the match is already over and that you already won. Like even from the third person, you could be like, Stacey just beat Allison Fisher. Oh wow! And then you just go through that in your head, like as if it already happened, so your mind can see the possibility of that happening.
Right.
I've done that before at finals against a tough player. I just kept telling myself, I'm not going to mention the player, but I said Max Eberle beat so and so, and then I imagined that the people were talking about it like in past tense because everybody always wants to know who won a tournament.
Right.
And then you can just say, oh, Stacey won the tournament. Stacey won the tournament. Like it already happened, and then you get used to the idea.
That's actually great advice because I know there's a lot of studies on visualization, and they do that with basketball players, professional basketball players, and some of those guys. And they say like they visualize making the basket for the winning shot and all that before the game, and then your body and your mind kind of like go along with that because your mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So it's kind of crazy. Like I study a lot about that stuff, and that's why virtual reality, or that's why you get nervous before you do something because your body is reacting to how you're thinking. So if you really believe you can win and you really visualize it, and you're getting yourself to believe that reality is a possibility, then you act according to that. And so that's great advice, and I think that's really important for especially low level or beginner players, or even juniors as they're practicing to become competitive players, to incorporate that as part of their practice, because just doing drills and just being a good shooter is only going to take you so far. Without that mind game, you're really at a deficit.
Yeah, and if you could practice as if you're in the actual match that you're going to play, I mean that'll be well before the match.
Right.
But that's good. I've had some success with that, and so have other players where when you're practicing, you're shooting for you, and then if you miss, now you're shooting for the other guy. Like say it's Buddy Hall in your mind, and then when he misses, now you're up again. I know some of the juniors back in my day, like Charlie Williams and Michael Coltrane, they used to do that because they've talked about it.
Yeah.
And I used to do that a little bit also. But one thing you can do in a match, like say you missed a few easy shots or something. What's been helpful to me is just to switch it up a little bit and focus on your process. So I've actually changed my aiming system so that I could completely be focused on my process a little bit more instead of focusing on the bad results you've got. So like say you're using ghost ball, or you thought you were using that and then it just wasn't working, but really you're probably nervous, but now you're down 5-2 in a match, and you lost a lot of confidence. First of all, you never give up. Second of all, like you just switch your aiming system completely. Now focus on the contact point. So now walk over to every shot, look at the contact point, get down and just think about the geometry of the shot. And that'll give your mind something to be occupied with, and something that actually is going to work and is a clear target. And it's hard to think about all the stuff you don't want to be thinking about, because really when you're confident, you just think about what you want to do on the table.
Right.
You're not going through all these other like bad scenarios that might happen.
Yeah, and that's true. Like you get what you think about, and you have to have tricks like that to kind of once you're in like that momentum of starting to like, oh, I'm missing good easy shots and I'm down. Like you have to turn that momentum around and taking action by like focusing and aiming. I think when I must have been like 2018, but I was watching Dennis Arcolo, and he every shot. I think he was playing Niels. I can't remember, but I think it was, and he would go every shot, make sure perfect contact point, perfect aim, and this and that. And he would walk around
Mhm.
and it's like it's not that he doesn't know where to aim, he's just doing that as practice to make sure he's in the zone, and he's really like robotic in the sense of like in a great way where you're just able to go up and do the same thing on every shot, and it really centers and calms your mind, and you really have a good system to rely on that even if like that stuff started happening. I mean, there's times, and like I said, I'm just a low player, but when I'm in a match, and I've been down before, I think I won like a 600 bracket at home, and I was down 6-0 against this guy at home in Boston. And I did the same thing. And I said, I told my boyfriend, I said, I don't know if I'm going to win or not. I said, but I'm going to try something else, right? I'm just going to try. And I kind of did what you did. I was like, telling myself, you know what, like I can run a few racks, right? I'm not terrible. Like this guy's good, but it's fine because I was like in the low bracket. At first, I was the lowest player in the bracket, and I'm like, I should be in the 550 and under, but I was like a 552. And they were like, no, that's it. Cutoff's at 550, right? I'm like, that happened, and I ended up beating the guy 7-6, and
Nice.
ended up winning that part of the bracket to go to the next bracket, and it was so crazy. And I said, like it's like if I can do that, like as a lower player, I'm thinking the pros, it's like the stuff that you can accomplish is amazing, right? With your mental game. And I want all of the players to see all these great things that you guys can do because it's really a lot of work to get where you've been. So,
Yeah, yeah. You never want to give up. I know that is a cliche, but too many pool players you can see they kind of give up a little bit when they're down in a match or a little bit behind, and then also start complaining. The body language gets bad, and they might not be trying 100%. Like one thing Michael Jordan said is, "I can't accept not trying," and he's mainly referring to his whole career. Like to not try to be the best or whatever. But also in a game, I mean, you got to try just to win this game. Try your best to score the point,
right.
and that's huge. Never give up. Always try 100%. That's what Nick Varner told me when I was picking his brain. That I helped him launch his brand in Virginia because that's where I'm from. So, and he was my hero growing up, one of the top 3 or 4 guys. So he invited me to tag along with him all over Virginia in his big Lincoln Town Car. He was like Paul Newman, and I was the kid.
Oh my God.
And so I introduced him to the pool hall owners I knew, like in Richmond and in Norfolk and up around Washington D.C. And but in the meantime, while we're driving, I would be picking his brain, like, Nick, what are you thinking about when you're coming from behind? And he was like, well, I just always like to try 100% on every shot. I was like, well, yeah, that's awesome. So I tried that following year on the Pro Tour, like the UPA Tour at the time, and it got to the point where I got so good at coming from behind that I'd be losing in matches, and I knew I was going to win. But here's the thing: there's pressure on the other player when you don't give up.
Yeah.
And start to come from behind because the match really isn't over. So just because they have a lead, they could have had a lead for multiple reasons. Maybe they got lucky, they got more shots, just a couple rolls here and there. So don't be so easy to beat, but they will feel that they know that you're not giving up, and they're going to feel that,
Right.
So if you're not doing that, then you're denying yourself the chance to come back and the chance to put them under the pressure that they deserve, just by giving up and having bad body language. It's like the worst thing you could do, right? Because you're going to lose a lot more matches like that. You're going to lose a lot of matches, and you're going to win a ton of matches if you don't give up. And it just comes down to one shot at a time. I mean, that's another cliche, but to try 100% on every shot, that's all you do anyway when you practice, right? You're not like worried about how are you going to feel when you're walking to go practice or you're driving on your way to practice. Right? You just, you're going to go practice, you show up, you start hitting some balls, you start getting into your process of shooting. And players forget to do that. They forget to go through their process because now winning is more important than just playing pool. and focusing on what you normally focus on anyway.
Yeah,
It's
that's
all about, oh, I got to win this. But really, no, you just don't forget that you really do love the process of every shot, and you got to try your best not to forget that.
that is really good advice because like especially for the lower players, like I play on, the BCA leagues and stuff like that, and some of the people they miss and they get so mad, and I'm like, how many hours of drills did you do this week? They're like, drills? I didn't do any drills, right? I'm like, well, did you shoot this week? And they're like, I shot last Saturday, I played some guy at the bar. And I'm like, no. I'm like, you're supposed to be enjoying like your experience, right? Like you're here to shoot pool and have a good time. I says, if you want to be the greatest, there's always gonna be someone better and someone worse, right? Like you're kind of in the middle, except for maybe people like you, Max, but most of us are gonna be kind of like in the middle, or even lower. And I says, you have to just play pool because you love it. I says, baseball, you're only gonna, the best in the world only hit 33%, right? That's pretty low. Like most of the time they miss. And so, they have to like something other than just hitting the ball about the game, because if that's all they're going for, then they're gonna be unhappy 70% of the time. So you have to find something that you really love about the game, like you said, the process and the shooting and hearing the balls click and learning the experience and all of these things, right? Like, I don't know, for everyone it's different, but for me, it's the whole thing, right? About like being a better person, right? And like, how do I use this game as a part of who I am? And so I learned these things from talking to people like you, and this is why I want this channel, so people can kind of ask themselves the same questions, right? And maybe improve a little bit more on who they are and what they're doing, because you only get so much time here on this earth, right? And then that's it.
Well, that's true. And if they don't practice, they don't really deserve to feel all bad and angry, because they haven't earned the right for that, Like
Yeah.
if they practice their ass off, like big time, and then they played bad, well, they have a little bit of license to feel bad about it, and maybe a little angry. But even then, you don't want anger to be your driving force.
Right.
So anyway,
And this leads into our last question. Perfect. So it says, do you believe that being good at the mental game is also relative to how you think about life or deal with difficulty in life?
yeah, I think so for sure. Or it might be a reflection of how you deal with difficulties in life to some degree. But I think it can help with all aspects of dealing with problems in life.
Right. Have you ever heard of how you do one thing is how you do everything? Like I say, if you're going to be a maniac all day long and think you're going to be a relaxed, peaceful pool player, it's probably not going to work that way, right? Because it's like, you're under pressure on the 8-ball. How much confidence do you have in yourself? Do you have confidence in yourself during the day, who you are when you're put under the spotlight? And then how does that correlate to that pressure and confidence on the table, right? Like, and I think just, from nothing, but just for me, and from talking to people, I see that it does correlate, right? Like who you are and like you said, your parents and all the support you've had and all of the things that you've experienced in your whole life culminate for you as you introspect on the table, shooting that ball, or like, what you said, what are you shooting for, right? What are you here for? And I think it all comes together. And I think that the pros, like you and some of the other pros, do it better than some of us amateurs who don't make those connections all the time. And I think it's important to make those connections.
Well, let's see. You're right. I wrote a little book like 25, 30 years ago. It's called Yes, but How Does It Relate to Pool? So everything in life, I would draw an analogy to pool.
Okay.
Because that was the most important thing to me, is pool, right? And so I could see little influences in everything. Like, oh, how can I relate that to pool? So that kind of goes in with what you're saying. Oh, before I forget, you're only as good as your last shot. This kind of goes back to the last question.
Yeah.
Right. So I forget where I read that or heard that when I was younger, about some good player said that. But you can't just, just because you have some success in the past doesn't mean that you deserve to make this shot right now or run the table, or that you're always going to be good or you're going to be good today. You got to focus right now, and you got to prove that you're good right now, right?
Right.
But you're only as good as your last shot. What that does is that brings you back to focusing right now on what you got to do right now to be great on this next shot.
Reset. Yeah. to your game.
Yeah, and that's that'll actually what will drive you to be a great player, because you're always moving forward when you do that, right?
Right.
Like, why did Shane practice for 5 hours on these long shots, or why did I used to play 9 to 12 hours a day? Because I knew how good I wanted to be,
Right.
and that that's what you have to do to get there. You gotta really practice. Like, if you're not playing every day a little bit, then you're just not going to get there. You're not going to get well. First you got to know how good you're trying to be. But players who are who take lessons and they're trying to improve, but then they tell me they only play like 3 or 4 days a week, I tell them it's going to be pretty hard.
And it's funny because 3 or 4 days a week is probably a lot. Like when I tell people, like I have a table at home, and I'm like, I don't play that much. Like I'm kind of staying the same, right? But I'm like, you have to practice 5, 6 days a week. They're like, what? Right? Like to them that would be like ridiculous, right? Like they're like, I already play league not twice a week. I'm like, no, that doesn't even count. That's not even practice at all. That's just going to hang out with your friends and having a good time. There's no practice there. Nothing's happening.
Yeah, you got to practice and make a quality practice where you're learning and trying, and that's where mentors come in and to see what's possible in the game. And you got to be disciplined to pick out where you want that cue ball to go every time. And and you got to, when you miss in practice, you got to set it up again, shoot it not only till you can make it, but till you can make it a few times, where you really learn that shot and that stroke and do it with your head still and a nice follow through. And the standards have always been very high to be a great player, but now there's more great players out there.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that it's easy, right? It's still very difficult to become a great player, just because there might have been like 30 or 100 great players back in the day. Now there's like 500 or 1,000 or maybe
a lot, yeah,
3,000 around the world.
Yeah, with all the
depends on your definition of great.
Well, that's true. But with all the juniors and all the stuff that's coming up, like you said, it's worth it to work really hard if you want to get there and really focus on your mental game. So
absolutely, and you should get good pretty fast in pool, because you can, right? Because kids can do it because we have all this time in the world. But you still got to put the time in on learning the shots.
Right.
You got to condense time. So whatever like you think you're going to do in 10 years, you should do that in like 2 months. You should
wow.
Save up some money from work.
Yeah.
And don't work for a couple months and just play 9 to 12 hours a day, and you will get better in 2 months than you would in 20 years.
That's true.
Do that.
Quality.
Yeah, it's called immersion. They've done all the studies on it. You can learn a language in like 9 days, or any skill in much shorter time if you spend like 90% of your day doing that thing, improving.
Right. That's really great advice too. That's something new. I haven't heard of immersion. I mean, I know like when you move to a new country, I've heard of it and stuff, but I haven't really thought of it in that sense as you just explained it. So that's pretty great. So I want to thank you for all of this time you've spent with us and all of these great tips you've given, and hopefully a lot of us can keep moving forward, and we're going to see you at some tournaments. I know tomorrow like you have some great pool to play, so I'm hoping that you do well, and we will keep watching to see where you end up.
Thank you. Can I plug a little offer I have real quick?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, I just want to send people to ProPoolAcademy.com because I have an 8-day masterclass on there that you can pay just $1. It's $1. You can donate what you want, but the minimum is $1. So if you want a masterclass for $1, it's a great little masterclass, and check it out at ProPoolAcademy.com.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Yes, definitely. That is a really good deal too. I'll probably be taking you up on that.
All right, cool. Appreciate it. No, it's been great talking with you, Stacey. Appreciate you asking me to do this, and we'll have to do it again sometime.